listen. So all the four speakers are going to give you a different perspective on listening and why it's important to listen as well. As I like to say to the kids, you got two ears and one mouth, so get the message, right? Speak less and listen more, right? So we'll go for that today. So I'll pass it over to Guru Charan Singh to start. After the Japji Sahib course, we'll have a bit more Simran, a bit more Kirtan, and then we'll finish off with a smaller Ardas, and we'll go with Guru Sahib Ji down to Sachkhand. If you have any questions, you can ask them throughout the talk to Guru Charan Singh. You can ask them afterwards as well. ठीक है जी? Okay. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Just before we start, I'd just like to do a more mantra, just to focus our minds. Ik Oankar Satnam Karta Purkh Nirbhau Nirvair Akal Murat Ajuni Sapang Gur Prasad Jap Ad Sach Jug Ad Sach Hai Bhi Sach Nanak Hosi Bhi Sach. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So, just as a quick reminder, so we have this group that you can join, and we'll basically send updates and stuff. One of the reasons as well was that people could send questions in. So we're in week 10. I don't think a single person has sent a question in. So we're hoping that someone can use that opportunity to send a question in. So just as a recap of last week, where Bhai Manpreet Singh talked about Bodhi 7. So in this Bodhi, Guru Nanak Dev Ji started by telling us about things that people try to attain. So they started out by saying, Je Jugachari Arja, Hord Soni Howe. That if you were to live for all the 4 ages, and then you were to times that by 10, and if we think about just the actual length of the 4 ages, it's not just 1,000 years or a couple of 100,000 years, they add up to about 2.5 million years. So if you were to live for 2.5 million years and then times it by 10, then Guruji then carries on and say, Nava Khanda Vich Janiye, Na Challe Sab Koe. That if you were to be known in the 9 regions, and then you were to have so many followers as well. And then they continue to say, Changa Na Rakai Ke, Jasakir Jagle. That you could have such a good name, and then people could sing your praises as well. And they tell us actually, even if you had all these things, they say, Jetes Nadarana Ave, that Vatana Pucheke. So if Vaheguru Ji doesn't do their blessing on you, they don't give that glance of grace, then nobody's going to ask about you. And then they continue saying, Kita under Kit Kar, Dosi Dosatare. That when we make sins and continue to sin, then actually within aunts, we become an aunt of them as well. Not aunt and uncle, as in like the animals, the ants, not aunts. And then sorry, I was speaking. I was in Kent for like 7 years, and they made me speak so posh. So I'm just it's still carrying on in my vocab. and then Guruji continues to say that Vaheguru Ji, that they are the giver. They give us the gun. They give us the good qualities. They say Nanak nirgun gun kare gunvantya gun de. That those that don't have any qualities, that Vaheguru Ji, they give them the qualities. And I see that those who do have good qualities, that do have gun, they continue to give them more gun. And then Guruji finishes by saying that nobody's like Vaheguru Ji, in that nobody can give gun apart from Vaheguru Ji. Nobody can give anyone good qualities apart from them. And we can't give Vaheguru Ji any qualities as well. So in this Bodhi, the Siddhs continue to ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji questions. They say to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they say that this Vaheguru that gives everybody gifts, that looks after everybody, that with their mantra, you were able to reach this high mountain, the Sumar mountain, which is where these Siddhs were residing. They said, then what's the power of listening to their name, of listening to Naam? And we can take Naam to be not only the name of Vaheguru, but also Gurbani. Because Gurbani comes from Vaheguru. Tur ki Bani Ai. It comes from that Tur, that source, that Vaheguru. And Guruji answer by saying, Sunaya Siddh Peer Suranath. So they say by listening, then you gain the status, the position of these 4 groups of people. The Siddhs, Peer, Sur and Nath. And we're going to go through each of these in more detail. So the Siddhs are those that have gained Riddhya Siddhya. So Riddhya means worldly powers. So this is like success, affluence, prosperity. And then we have the Siddhya, which are the spiritual powers. And the spiritual powers are separated into two groups. So you have the main spiritual powers, and then you have the secondary spiritual powers. And just to give an idea of what these powers can entail, we're going to go through what the main spiritual powers are. But we're going to do it through a quiz. So I'm going to play a video of a specific spiritual power, and then we're going to ask the Sangat to then guess what it is. So we have the first spiritual power called Anima. So who can guess what spiritual power is Anima? Hanji. Hanji. So Anima is the power to make yourself really small. So we'll go to the next one. So apologies, I don't know what this woman is doing with her head, but it's the only video I can find. So we have Garima. So what is the power of Garima? Yeah, Hanji? Hanji, yeah, in a way, not quite. Hanji. So two? No, not quite. That's another one. It's close though. Hanji. Neja, I'll tell you the answer. So it's to make yourself heavy, right? And then we have the next one, which is Vashita. Who can guess what power that is? Hanji, at the back? Hypnotize, yeah, so basically it's near enough there. So it means to control somebody's mind, right? And then we have Lagima. And just beforehand, this is not flying, yeah? The power is not flying. So, Hanji. No, that's kind of like flying. It's actually, some of these are the opposites of the ones we've already done, so that's a clue. Hanji. Nee, it's kind of flying as well. Going big. No, not that one. Hanji. Yeah, it's a very close. Yeah, so it makes it, you can make yourself really, really light. Hanji, so like weightlessness. Hanji. And then we have Mehima. Anybody guess what this? Hanji. Hanji, to make yourself really big. Hanji. And then we have Prapati. Who can guess what power would that be? Anybody? Hanji? Neji. Good guess though. Hanji. Neji. Hanji. So the wishes that you have in your mind, you can obtain them. And then we have the last one, which is Ishita. Hanji. So we had that before. It's in the same kind of type of power in that respect. Hanji. Neji. So again, it's more to do with other people's minds. Hanji. Neji. So this power is the power to persuade other people. Hanji. So those are the spiritual powers, the main spiritual powers. And when we see them or hear about them, then people often think, you know what, I want these spiritual powers. They seem quite cool. But what does Guruji actually say about these powers? When Guruji says, they say, Har har kantha jini paharya guru charani chetlaye tina pichhe riddh siddh phire ona tiranatamai. So they're saying first that whoever wears that har, that garland, that decorative necklace of har, of Vahiguru's remembrance around their neck, and also Gurjarani Chitalai, those who focus their minds on the feet of their Guru, then what happens to these people? They say, They said that these worldly powers, these spiritual powers, they actually come chasing after them. They come running after them. But then they say that Guruji says that Ona Tilnatamai, that these devotees, they don't even care one sesame seed's amount's worth for these. They have no greed towards them. They have no concern for these powers because their focus is on the remembrance of WhyGuru, on the feet of their Guru. So we had Sunaya Siddh Peer. So Peer means a well-respected spiritual person in the Islamic faith. And this photo here is of Peer Dastagir. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji actually met Peer Dastagir when they went to Afghanistan, to Baghdad. And Peer Dastagir was such a highly respected spiritual person. People used to come from all around to give them gifts. And they had a question for Guru Nanak Dev Ji. They said to Guruji that this WhyGuru, who created them? Who came before them? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to them, they said that I've heard that people bring you rubies, they bring you gems, they bring you diamonds, that I want you to bring them to me. And Peer Dastagir is thinking, Guruji's not even answered my question yet, but he wants these items. But Guruji was actually going to answer the question with them. So once these items were brought, Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to Peer Dastagir that I want you to count them now. So Peer Dastagir starts, he says 1, 2, 3, 4. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says stop. He says, you're not very good at counting, are you? Your counting skills can't be that good. And Peer Dastagir is saying that I counted correctly up to 4. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, no, you made a mistake, you need to start again. So Peer Dastagir starts again. They say 1, 2, 3, 4. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says stop. He said, you're still making a mistake. And Peer Dastagir said, right, I'm going to start again, but when I make the mistake, then tell me that I've made a mistake. And then Guruji says, okay. So Peer Dastagir starts again. He says 1, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji says stop. He says, why are you starting from 1? Why don't you start from before 1? And Peer Dastagir, looking confused, said, how can I start from before 1? There's nothing before 1. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, exactly. He said, before that 1, before that ik, before that one WhyGuru, there was nothing. And so he got his answer in that way. So Sunaya Siddh Peer Sur. So Sur refers to the Devte, the Hindu gods. These Hindu gods that are respected so much by the Hindus. And there's so many of them as well. Who can guess how many Hindu gods are there? Oh, yeah. Okay, so got 2 answers. Sorry, so what did you say, Viji? 20, so it's not more than 20. 33 crore, Hanji, correct. 33 crore meaning 33 million. It says 33 million Hindu gods worshipped by the Hindus. And Guruji is saying here that by listening, that we attain the status that they have, that we attain the Shakti they have, the power that they have, but we don't need to go to the Devte because actually we can surpass their level. And the reason is because these Devte, they're still actually subject to Maya. They're still affected by Maya. So we have Sunaya Siddh, Peer, Sur, and now Nath. Nath meaning the master of the yogis. And a yogi is someone who practices yoga. And the word yoga means to get union with WhyGuru. Right? So they practice yoga doing these different intense positions. It's not like we go to the gym, we do a downward dog, we do a butterfly, and that's it. These are really intense, difficult positions that they have to do. They hold their arm up for years. They hold one of their legs up for years. And Guruji is saying that by listening, just by listening to Nam, we actually become the master of these yogis without having to do these intense meditations. And just a Sakhi, so Shivji and Parvati, their wife, they were sitting on a riverbank one day. And Shivji started to do the Gatha of Vaheguru. What happened is Parvati started to fall sleepy. and eventually she fell asleep. And when she woke up, she saw something. She saw that there was a fish that was still. And she asked Shivji, she said, how is this possible? How is it possible that a fish whose very nature is actually to always keep moving, how is it that this fish is still? And Shivji said that when this fish was swimming, they heard the gatha of Vaheguru and they became still. They stopped so they can listen to that gatha. And Parvati said, well, what's the fruit, what's the reward that this fish is going to obtain? And Shivji said that from that fish's stomach is going to become born a Nath, a Machandranath, who is actually the leader of the leaders of the Siddhs. And Machandranath, actually, he also met Guru Nanak Dev Ji as well. And so this also teaches us as well that by listening to Naam, it's not only just in this life we get the benefits, but it's also in the next life as well. And by listening, we get to become the master of the yogis. In the next line, Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Sunaya tart tavala akas. So by listening, we have tart, meaning earth, tart, meaning bull, and akas, meaning space. And this bull is referring to in the Hindu Dharam, the Hindu faith, that they say that a bull supports the earth, supports the righteousness of the earth. And Guruji here is saying that by listening, that bull has gained the strength to support the earth. And Bhai Gurdas Ji, who is the nephew of Guru Amar Das Ji, actually speaks about this bull in their Bani. They say, Paap girasi piritami, taul khada, tar het pukara. So they say that the piritami, the earth, Paap girasi, is engrossed in sin. And they say that this taul, this bull, that stands underneath the earth for support, pukara, is crying out. He was crying out because there's so much sin in the world. There's so much suffering. And Bhai Gurdas Ji tells us who hears these cries, who listens to the cries of the world, to this bull as well. They say, Suni pukar datar prabh, Guru Nanak jag mahi bitaya. They say that datar prabh, that giver Vaheguru, Suni pukar. They heard the cries. And what happened? Guru Nanak jag mahi bitaya. That in this world, Guru Nanak Dev Ji came to alleviate the suffering, to stop the cries. And there's a story of two sages. Sages mean spiritual people. So we had one sage, his name was Vishvamitra. And then we also had Vishisht. And, too fast. And each of these had done a particular spiritual activity. So Vishvamitra, they had done 58,000 years of penance. So this is similar to what we were saying with the yogis, the penance where they do such difficult positions, very difficult meditation. And so he'd done 58,000 years worth of it. And he was going to receive the fruits of doing this. And then Vishisht, they had done 90 minutes of sadsangat, listening to the praises of Vaheguru. And they were going to obtain the fruits of that as well. And so they were having a conversation. They said to each other that, why don't we swap the fruits that we were going to obtain from these things? Hanji, sorry. On this. So the people tried different ways to try and attain Vaheguru, right? To merge with that one. And so many people believe that by doing penance, by causing hardship to the body, doing really difficult things, that they can then get closer to Vaheguru and merge with Vaheguru. Is that KG? So Vishisht, they had done 90 minutes of sadsangat, and they had a conversation between themselves, and they said that why don't we swap the fruits that we were going to obtain from doing each of these things. So Vishvamitra was going to get the fruits of doing 90 minutes of sadsangat, and Vishisht, he was going to receive the phal of doing 58,000 years of penance. And Vishvamitra, he thought, actually, I think I've got a bad deal here, because I think that my 58,000 years of penance is worth more than 90 minutes of sadsangat. And so what do we think? Do we think, if you put your hands up, if you think 58,000 years of penance is worth more? Hands up if 90 minutes of sadsangat? Oh, wow, okay. Good answer. So they said, right, let's go to somebody. We need to get somebody to give us an answer on this. So they go to someone called Sheshnag. And Sheshnag was a multi-headed snake that they believed was supporting the earth. And they said to Sheshnag, they said, look, we've got this problem. We're trying to decide who's got more fruits from doing each of these activities. And Sheshnag said, look, I've got the earth on my head. It's going to be difficult for me to give you an answer. So one of you guys lift the earth up, and then I can give you an answer. And so Sheshnag said, why don't you guys use the fruits of the different activities you were doing to lift the earth up? And so Vishwamitra, he tried with his 58,000 years of penance, but the earth didn't move. And then Vishisha tried with the 90 minutes of satsanga that he did, and the earth lifted up. And Vishwamitra, he got his answer. And if we link it back to ourselves, we do about 90 minutes of satsanga here, right? On a Sunday, we do a bit of simran beforehand, a bit of Kirtan. Then we listen to the explanation of Gurbani, of Naam. And then afterwards as well, we do some more Kirtan, more simran. So sometimes we don't realize actually the spiritual benefit that we're getting from being here in Sadh Sangat. More than 58,000 years of penance. I know which one I'd rather do. So it just shows, like, let's just keep that motivation, that inspiration to keep spending time in Sadh Sangat. Then we have the next Pankti. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Suniya Deep Lo Patal. So by listening, we gain the wisdom, the knowledge of the deep, which means the continents, the lower, the realms. So there's 14 realms. We have 7 higher ones, and then we also have the Patal, which are the 7 lower ones, the underworld. And a Sakhi on this is one of Guru Hargobind Sahib's time, when they were residing in city Hargobindpur Sahib. And in that village, in that town, sorry, was a Pandit called Pandit Nityanand. And he was a really well-versed scholar in the Hindu scriptures. But he couldn't find a job. No mandir was actually employing him. So he went to Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji and said, will you give me paid employment so I can support my family? And Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji said, I'll give you paid employment and you can do your discourses here. So one day, the Pandit, they were doing discourse of the Garuda Puran. So this is a scripture that talks about death and the afterlife. And on that day, the section they were going through was talking about that when you die and you go to the next world, those that have lived a life of doing good actions, they are taken to the next world in a palaki. So something like this. So sometimes you see kings and queens, they're lifted in a palaki. And they say that they're taken there to the next world in peace. And they say those that have lived a life of sin, they are taken to the next world in suffering. They are taken whilst being beaten. And they said actually to get to the next world, it takes 1 year. And what happened is once the Katha had finished, they went outside and they overheard 4 Sikhs having a conversation. And these Sikhs, the first Sikh said to the others, they said that this Pandit, in this Katha that we heard, he said that it takes a year to get to the next world. And that Sikh said that this is strange because I can get to the next world in 4 pehers. So in 24 hours, in 1 day, there's 8 pehers. So how many, this is just sneaking in a math question here, how many hours is 1 peher? 3? Yeah, 3. Very good. So 1 peher is 3. So he said, I can get there in 4 pehers, which is 12 hours. The second Sikh, he says that that's too long. I can get there in 2 pehers, in 6 hours. The third Sikh, he said, I can get there in 1 peher, in 3 hours. And the fourth Sikh, he said that with the kirpa of Guruji, I can get there in 1 pal, which is 24 seconds. And hearing this, the Pandit got angry and he went to Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. He said to Guruji that the scriptures that I was doing Gatha of, they said that it takes a year to get to the next world. But I overheard your Sikhs saying that they can get there from anywhere between 12 hours and 24 seconds. So tell me, Guruji, who's lying? Who's false? And Guruji says, actually, no one's lying. They're both true. And the Pandit says, how's this possible? And at that time, WhyGuru Das Ji was with Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji. And Guruji asked WhyGuru Das Ji, he says, can you explain to the Pandit? And Bhai Gurdas Ji said that these scriptures are correct, that it does take a year to get to the next world, but this is the Sikhs are beyond these. They're beyond these things. Because these talk about just purely good actions and bad actions. But the Sikh, they worship their Guru. They do Simran on Vaheguru without any expectation of return. They don't do any sin. And that when they do any good actions in general, they don't expect anything back. And Bhai Gurdas Ji said that these scriptures, they don't talk about the Sikhs of the Guru, because the Guru protects their Sikhs. And it said that when the Sikhs go to Dharmaraj, which is the being that Vaheguru has appointed, that when people die in this world and they go to the next world, Dharmaraj is like a judge, and he reads all of our actions, what we've been doing, and then he decides where we go next. And he says when Dharmaraj meets a Sikh of the Guru, that they pay respect to them. And then the Pandit said to Guruji, he said that, Guruji, tell me the way that what I've just heard, that I can have full faith in it. I can fully believe it. And Guruji said to the Pandit, he says, stay here in this Gurukar. That stay here, do seva, and meditate on the name of Vaheguru. And that Pandit stayed there for 6 months. And after those 6 months, he gained full wisdom, full knowledge of all the deep, the continents, all the Patal, the underworlds, and all the law, the realms, the 14 realms. So this is just like a real life Sakhi, that actually by listening, we get wisdom of all these things. Then the next Pankti, Sunaya Pohe na sakya kal. So by listening, Pohe, meaning touch, na sakya, cannot, kal, death. So sometimes when we read a translation, we've got to read it kind of back to front. So here it would mean, by listening, death cannot touch that person. And again, a Sakhi relating to this Pankti is that of Guru Hargobind Sahib's time again, their son Baba Atal Rai. Baba Atal Rai used to love playing outside with their friends. And one day, they were playing with their friends, and it was starting to get dark. And Baba Atal Rai said to their friends that, let's stop now. It's getting dark. We'll carry on tomorrow. And the person whose go it was their friend Mohan. And Mohan was one of their best friends. That even though Baba Atal Rai was 9 years old and Mohan was a year older, 10, they were inseparable. They used to play with each other all the time. And in the mornings, that Baba Atal Rai would do Gatha and Mohan would listen to the Gatha. And then they would play for the rest of the day. And Baba Atal Rai said to Mohan, he said that tomorrow is going to be your go in the morning. And Mohan said, that's fine. So they all went home. And the next day, they all came back to that same spot, apart from Mohan. And Guruji said to the kids, he said that everybody's here, but the person whose go it is, he's not even here. It's for the game called Kiddo Kundi they used to play with a stick. And he said he sent one of the kids to Mohan's house to go get Mohan, to tell him it's his go. And when the kid reached Mohan's house, everybody was in mourning. They were crying. They were all sad. And the kid asked, he said, what's happened? And one of the family members said that during the night, when Mohan was asleep, a snake came and they bit Mohan, and he died. And that kid ran back to Baba Atal Rai to tell the news. And Baba Atal Rai went himself then to the house of Mohan. He went to the body of Mohan, and Baba Atal Rai in Mohan's ears, he said, Vaheguru. And he put the stick on the neck of Mohan, and he said, get up, it's your go. And what happened was that Mohan got up. The whole family was shocked, so surprised that their son had been brought back to life. And news started to spread. It started to spread around the areas. And Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji heard about this. And he called their son Baba Atal Rai. So do we think that Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji was happy? Or do we think he was sad? Hands up for happy that he brought someone back to life. Oh, someone's having it a little bit for a second there. and yeah, so Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, they were unhappy and they said to their son, he said, you didn't stay in the will of Vaheguru. The Vaheguru ordained that a life was to be taken, but now that life has been brought back. And he said to their son that before people start coming to us and asking for their children to be brought back to life, you tell me now who's going to remain. Because one life was meant to be taken, and that's been brought back, but one life still needs to go. So you tell me, is it going to be yours or is it going to be mine? And Baba Atalai, they put their hands together and they start walking backwards. They go and have an ishnan, they bathe, and they go sit next to a nearby sarovar, like a sacred pool next to a gurukar. And they do a Japji Sahib part. And once they finish the Japji Sahib part, they lay down on the floor, they put a white sheet over them, and they leave this world. They leave their body. And so we can learn two things from this Sakhi, is that one is that Mohan, just by listening to the name of Vaheguru, they came back from the dead. That death couldn't touch them. And the other is that we should always stay in the will of Vaheguru. Nanak Bhagata Sada Vigas. The Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying that the Bhagats, those that do Bhagati, those that do loving devotion to Vaheguru, Sada Vigas. Sada meaning always. Vigas, bliss. They're always in bliss. That we go through these cycles of being happy, sad, we have a great day, we have a bad day, we're affected by these continuously, like waves. But these Bhagats, they're not affected by these cycles. Guru Arjan Dev Ji, they tell us as well in their Bani. They say, Taisa harkh, taisa usasog. Sada ananda, teh nahi biyog. So they say, Taisa harkh, as is that happiness, taisa usasog, as is that sadness to them. That they see it as the same. They say, Sada ananda, that they are always in bliss. Teh nahi biyog. And they're not separated from Vaheguru. And when we listen to Naam, to Kirtan, to Gatha, to Simran, that we're not separated from Vaheguru as well. And we know this because when we listen to Naam, then we feel that peace that comes over us. We feel that sense of quietness. And we know that Vaheguru is with us. And the last pankti, Sunaya Dukh Papa Ganas. That by listening, Dukh, suffering, Papa, sin, Ganas are destroyed. These are both destroyed. And a Sakhi that relates to this pankti is when Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Bhai Mardana Ji, and also Bhai Balaji, that they were traveling and they were in the city, the town of Deepalpur, and they needed a place to stay. But nobody was actually giving them a place to stay overnight. And so they went to the outskirts, they saw a hut. And when they approached this hut to ask to stay the night, there was someone who was living there who was a poor leper. A leper meaning they've had leprosy, which is a really serious disease that can deform your skin on the outside. And they asked this poor leper, Guruji says that, can we stay the night? We'll be gone in the morning. And that poor leper said that it's actually by God's grace that I can even see a man, because the animals don't even come near me. And he said that, yes, of course, you can stay the night. And that night, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, that night was passing in the loving remembrance of Vaheguru. But whilst Guruji was in that remembrance, he heard crying. That poor leper was just crying out loud during the whole night. And Guruji said that, let me try and alleviate his suffering. And so he asked that poor leper, he said, why are you crying? And the poor leper said that, what else can I do apart from cry? That's all there is to do. Because I'm crying in the pain of this disease that gives my body so much dukh. That I'm crying because I'm remembering, where has all my happiness gone? Where's all that richness gone that I had when I was so wealthy? And I'm crying because all those family members, those friends that I was so close with, that when I got this disease, they all left me. And he says, am I that bad that the people of the town don't even let me enter the town? And he says that this gives me so much loneliness. This loneliness eats me up. And this loneliness is such a hard suffering to bear that only those who have experienced loneliness know how hard it is, how much of a big suffering it is. And he said that I know that crying isn't going to do me any good, that it only just breaks my head, but I feel that it's the only thing that gives me some kind of support. And he says that this loneliness people have given me out of hate, just because of this illness. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to him that because of the sins you've done in your past, this is why you're experiencing these things. That the sins you've done is cause you to have the disease of this physical body. Because the sins you've done, you now had your soul that's been stained. And the poor leper said to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he said, because of the sins that I've made in my past, that do I now have to suffer forever because of it? And he said that, what can I do? Help me, Guru Nanak. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said that, remember that Vaheguru. That Vaheguru that is so compassionate, so merciful. That Vaheguru that saves even the worst of sinners. And before Guru Nanak Dev Ji was going to leave in the morning, the poor leper said to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, says, please help me. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to Bhai Mardana, he said, get the Rabab ready, because Bani is coming. And in the Rag of Dhanasari, Guru Nanak Dev Ji starts to sing a Shabad that starts with Jio Tapda Hai Baro Bar. That my soul is burning again and again. And when Guru Nanak Dev Ji finished singing that Bani, singing that Shabad, all of that pain, all of that suffering from that leper disappeared. It went away. And that poor leper, they just fell at the feet of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And all they could keep saying was, Dhan Guru Nanak, Dhan Guru Nanak, Dhan Guru Nanak. And so this just shows, this Sakhi shows us that Sunaya Dukha Papa Ganas. And sometimes we hear these Sakhi and we think that this is just from ages ago. This is from hundreds of years ago. These things don't happen today. But Sangatji, this still happens today. And only a few months ago, at the Basics of Sikhi camp in December, on the last day, there was a Benji that shared a story of hers. She said that a month before camp, so in November time, she said that she was going through such a difficult time, such a hard time. She was so upset that she couldn't stop crying, that she would just keep crying and crying. And she said she tried to reach out to a couple of people that she knew, but she couldn't get through to them. And she said that she remembered that she'd heard of a Sukhmani Sahib. She heard of this Bani. And she said, why don't I put on Sukhmani Sahib? And she said within 5 minutes of putting on Sukhmani Sahib, she said all that dukh that she had, all that pain, she said it went away, disappeared. And she said she was just sitting there confused. And she realized the power that Bani had, the power of listening. Sunaya Dukha Papa Ganas. And just to finish on, that we've heard the amazing transformational effect that listening can have. That listening, we can get the status of those 4 groups of people we talked about. The Siddhs, the Beed, Sur, Naat. That bull that supports the earth, by listening, they gain the strength to do so. That by listening, we get knowledge of all the deep, the continents, on all the realms, the 7 upper realms, the 7 lower realms. That these bugats, that they're always in bliss, that death can't touch us, and that our pains, our sufferings, they all get removed. But listening to some other things, they can actually have the opposite effect. That those things that we listen to over and over again, that our mind starts to accept them, and it changes our thinking. And if we just look at the songs, for example, that are played today, including Punjabi songs, that these songs that sing of alcohol, that same alcohol that destroys people's families, where they lose all their loved ones. These songs that sing of the caste system, where they say that one caste is the most superior and is superior to other castes. That same caste system, that if you were deemed to be a lower caste, you couldn't even listen to the scriptures. And if you were caught, you would have melted metal put into your ears, so you could never hear anything again. That same caste system, that someone who was deemed to be a lower caste, if the shadow of theirs went onto somebody else's food, that food would be thrown away. Imagine how they must have felt. Songs that sing about drugs, drugs that destroy people's lives. That even in Punjab, the home of Sikhi, that nearly 75% of the youth are addicted to drugs. That even children aged between the age of 10 and 12, that only in the recent years, the last couple of years, the amount of children in that age range of 10 to 12 that have become addicted to drugs has increased by 10 times. Songs that sing about women in a disrespectful way. That same disrespect that when a wife's husband would die and the husband was cremated in the fire, that the wife was expected to jump on that fire as well and kill herself. And so let's just assess, what are we listening to? Because it has an effect on our mind. It can change the way we think. What are we supporting? So let's just, as an action point that we can do, let's just reflect, what are we listening to? And it doesn't just include songs, it includes TV, media, because many of these things actually then increase the 5 vices within us. Our desires, lust, anger, greed, pride. So please forgive me for the many mistakes I've made. Lekh hai katahna chuti hai, kin kin purana har, baksana har baksale, nanak par utar. Vaheguru ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru ji ki fateh. So are there any questions, Sangat ji? I'll check if there's any on the app. Let me check if there's any on the app. Oh, Hanji, question, Hanji, sorry. Hanji. Powers of, sorry, which powers are you referring to?
When you get all these powers through listening, how do you get the powers? Is it through osmosis, or do they come one day you wake up and they're there? Well, I mean, I don't understand how you get
osmosis. Has to do with water transport, right?
Is it with thought, or what? How do you get all these powers?
When you get to a higher state, the kirpa just happens, right? So I'm not too sure. I mean, if I get the powers, I'll let you know. But I don't know.
I thought there might be a science to it or something.
Is Sukhdeep Singh, is there any? Is Sukhdeep Singh mic?
I think VG answered it correctly in the fact that if somebody's gained it, then they can answer the question for you. So I think that's probably the best answer in terms of how do you gain them. But I guess for anybody in the room that's ever practiced spirituality, you'd almost it's not something to speak about. It's something that just comes naturally to the individual. So I wouldn't say there's a science behind it in that respect. It's just something that, as anybody will know here, is that when you start to practice Sikhi, after a few months or a few years, you think, oh, I didn't realize that this change has happened. So it could be it says Sutta said, very naturally these things can occur, right? So it's not like a light bulb moment, if you get what I'm trying to say. It's just, it happens naturally.
Hanji, Darshan, did you have a question, Darshan? Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, Hanji.
You know that guy who did Sad Sangat for 90 minutes, yeah? Then he had the power to lift the earth. I think like most of the people in this room have probably been here for more than 90 minutes, but then I don't think anyone here can lift the earth. Like,
have you tried? So this was a Saki to illustrate that this is the power of doing that Sad Sangat, right? And their opportunity, when they saw Sheshnag, they had the opportunity to try to use the fall from that as well, right? But I guess we're not in that situation, but we shouldn't doubt actually how much the effect of Sad Sangat can have. I think Sukhdeep Singh wants the mic. Get your steps up.
Sorry, I don't want to stand. I just feel really tired. But just to look at Seva Singh's question, the way you're kind of posing the question, bro, is that the individual then has the power, but it's not about the individual. It's about the Nam. It's about the Sad Sangat has the power. Does that make sense? So don't look at the individual that he could lift the world up. It wasn't him. It was the Sad Sangat. It was that time. It was actual Sad Sangat that has the power. So like a story that goes with that is of Raja Janak, who's a very famous king, and when he left his body, he was on his way towards whatever you want to call it, the higher levels towards the heavens, right? Sachkhand, and along the way he heard the cries of hells, of all the hells, all the people that are sitting in hell, and he said to the person that was taking him there, he said, "Oh, I feel so sorry for the people that are in hell." This is written, by the way, in Bhai Gurudashi's Vara, and he says that, "Can I help them?" And they go, "Not really." And they go, "What happens if I was to trade some of my nam, this nam that I've earned? If I was to trade that nam, what could I gain from that?" So what he did is that he gave one of his, you could say one of his nam. Right, so imagine we've earned a lot of nam in our life, done a lot of satsang. He just gave one. He said, weigh this against the sins of hell, of all those people in hell, all the sins that they committed. And when they did that, that one piece of nam weighed more than all the sins of hell. So he was able to liberate everybody in hell just from one nam. Right, so the point here is that it's not about so I've sat for 90 minutes, so I should be able to lift the world up. It's not about us, it's about the actual nam itself. It's about sadsangat and the effect of that, if that makes sense. Right, so try not to confuse that with the individual saying that then I should be able to do that. He didn't lift the world up, it was the sadsangat that lifted the world up, that time spent in sadsangat. It wasn't the individual that was able to do that. Tika. Anybody else? Any other questions? Hanji Viji?
So, like in terms of doing Nam and sort of fixing all the problems that you've done in the past, can your current problems on Earth now as a human, can anything be fixed? In terms of, like for example, you gave the example of the guy who had leprosy and he was at peace with his current, by worshipping Vaheguru and connecting again, he was sort of at peace. But what about what you're going through? Can for the hardship we have in our current day on Earth, right? We're human. We go through our problems, and that's to do with our karma from our past. But will anything now in this current time be fixed? Can that be fixed?
100%. There's nothing that Vaheguru can't do. There's so many stories in the past that people's current conditions, whether it's physical or mental, they get sorted. I think someone actually only sent something today about someone who had cancer, and they went to Siddhi Mandir Sahib. Was it you? Siddhi Mandir Sahib, and their cancer was cured. They spent that time there in that Siddhi Mandir Sahib where Naam is continuously 24 hours is recited. So there's no limit to what they are beyond, right? There's no limit to what they can do.
Just to add to that, of course, I agree with everything that VG is saying, but we can't also be naive to the fact that there's a lot of people that may get ill and have problems, and they may feel like they're due, quote unquote, Naam Simran, but their cancer doesn't get cured, and so on, right? So when it comes to these kind of questions that people ask, they're great questions, and a lot of people have these questions, but we can't give a simple answer. Every single scenario is different, right? In one situation, Hanji, somebody does Naam Simran and their rog is removed, their disease is removed. But in another case, they have to still live that out. But that was a part of Hukam. So, and that's a bit of an easy answer to give, but these concepts are so complicated that we're trying to understand them through our own intellect. But it's not that simple, because fair enough that other person did all that Naam Simran, but we are looking at everything through this one individual life. That this one life, and this is easy for me to say, is so important that this is the end or be all of everything. But our soul has been around for billions of years. So in that respect, this one life doesn't mean nothing. If you were to leave this body and look at the span of our soul from when it started to this present moment, this present life is nothing. Right? So even if in that moment somebody did everything that we said in Naam Simran, and you could say, well, nothing came about it, that's completely incorrect. Because we're looking at based upon this one life, this 1 year of pain, or this 80 years of life. but excluding 80 billion or how many billions of years of karma that we've acquired that could have been burnt away, and it could have led to actually that we don't have to come back again. Right, so just one story to go alongside that is they say, just to kind of give the opposite side to that, is that when somebody reaches such a high spiritual state, they say that all their sanchit karam gets burnt away. That means all their karmas from the billions of lives, and they only have to live out what is in this life. So at the last moment, people say, "Oh, why do good people, saints, get a lot of dukh? Why do they get so ill at the end of life and live such a maybe have such a difficult passing, right?" But another way to look at that is that WhyGuru has taken all their karam that they got left and they just put it all into one moment and then just destroyed it in that rog, that disease, and they never have to come back again. All their karma is burnt. So the point here is that it's what angle are we coming at this with, these kind of questions, that actually, does it have to be a negative or could it be a positive? But again, these things are very complicated. That's why I can only give you many examples to show that, yes, in some cases, you may go to Hanumandir Sahib, it'll be burnt away. Other cases, no. But what is the bigger picture? Is that okay, VG?
Can I add a Saki onto that?
Hanji, if you want
There's
to.
like Sukhdeep Singh was saying, that we're only looking at it from this life. That there's a book called Sekanaya. I don't know whether any of you heard of it. It's probably one of the most inspirational books that I had when I was coming into Sikhi that I was reading, and it's based on the life of Sant Baba Harnam Singh Ji. And someone had a question about someone in the Sangat there. That the Sangat, that person had a question. They said that this person who comes to Sangat, they do so much Simran, they do so much Seva, but they said they've still got a problem with their leg. That why is this the case? And Sant Baba Harnam Singh Ji, he didn't normally like to look at people's past lives, but he felt that actually to keep the kind of respect for Guru Sahib, he said that this person in their last life, that they'd made some food and they put it on the table, and they had a dog as well. And he said that whilst they turned away to grab something extra for their meal, the dog came on top of the table and started eating their food. And they said that when that person came back and they saw their dog doing that, they hit their dog and they ended up actually breaking that dog's leg. And they said because of that, in this life, that's why they're having to go through this now. So they're having a problem with their leg. So that's just kind of one example of actually, on the past life, sometimes we have to go through something in this life because of our previous actions. Is there any other questions?
WhyGuru. So
there you go.
The concept of dukh is quite interesting actually, because when you get on that Gursikh, Gurmukh level, the Maharaj Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji says, "Jo nar dukh mein dukh nahi manne." The person who goes through dukh, that Gursikh who goes through sorrow, who goes through pain, but he doesn't see it as pain. And there's a Sakhi that comes to mind when you were talking about this, just down the road at Karnavir Singh's Nonni's house. This was during the 2000, I can't remember what year, Baba Thakur Singh Ji, they were beautiful Gursikh that used to come to the UK. And once there was a lady who came to see them, and in front of everyone, she said to Babaji, "Please bless me with dukh. Please bless me with pain." And at that time, all the Singhs around were shocked. That what is this lady saying? Everyone who normally comes to Babaji used to say, "Please bless me with this happiness. Please bless me with that happiness. Please bless me with a child. Please bless me with money." But this lady's coming and asking for dukh, for pain. And Babaji Singhs questioned her. And they said, "Mataji, why are you asking for dukh?" And she said, "It is only when I have dukh, when I have sorrows, that I remember Vaheguru. And I want to be in remembrance of Vaheguru for the rest of my life. So please bless me with this dukh." And that is such a state that the Gurmukhs get to, that they want this dukh upon them so they can remember Vaheguru. So again, it comes back to that pankti, "Jo nar dukh mein dukh nahi manne." The one who has sorrow but does not see it as sorrow. So this is also again the state of Chardikla that Gursikhs are always in. They see the dukh and they change it into something positive, changing negative into positive. That's what Gursikhs do. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
No more questions?
It's not so much a question, but just in addition to what Baisa was saying, would it be same for Dukh Daru Sukh Rog Paya? Ja Sukh Tam na hoy?
Oh, you're asking me? Oh, yeah. So that would be the same. Dukkadaru, saying that the pain is the medicine. The dukkadaru sukh rog paya. That actually in sukh, that's actually when we get the disease. So like it adds on to what Viju was saying, that it's in pain that actually we remember. Anybody else?
Vaheguru, also I feel it's also about learning to live with Pana, Vaheguru the Hukam, end of the day. That counts. It doesn't matter. We obviously do Ardas in Guruji's presence in our mind. But end of the day, we surrender and submit ourselves to Guru and say, whatever you do, that is best for me. Because I have no better idea than Guru. So that would be the sort of internal feeling inside when you're asking for dukh or sukh. Guru is much more wiser than us. So we have to submit ourselves. End of the day. Yes, I can cry, just like a child cries to its mother and father about something, say they want a chocolate or something. But if the mother decides that for her child the best thing to do is to give us something which is more spicy. So end of the day, the mother is the best, and our Guru is mother and father as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, just to add, I think from what I got from this talk is that the power of Sat Sangat is just beyond, so it's incomparable. You know, you can't really compare it to sort of anything. And it kind of it gets explained, I think, Viji, so, you know, explained it quite well with the Bhakti, Jo nar dukh mein dukh nahi mane, sukh sneho arbehne jaake kanchan mati mane, to be in that sort of state, to see gold and dirt alike, you know what I mean? It's just like, how can you compare that? How can you even sort of fathom that from what we've been through and the garam that we've been reaping? And it goes back to the Bhakti as well that we've been sort of trying to go into here when it says Nanak Bhakta Sadavikas Suniye Dukh Bap Ganas. That's also like a superpower in itself, though, if you think about it. Which is why I say, like, which is why I find, I think the fal that we get from Sat Sangat, you can't really just talk about it. We have to sort of be in there. And I think if you're in that sort of state as well, you kind of do become sort of like superhuman. You do sort of carry the world, you know what I mean? Because how many people are like that? And how many people do we actually need for that? So we could go into Sat Sangat, potentially get that fal, and we could be like those Harijans who sort of come here. Potentially. You never know. Those people who just do Badupakari, who just help others. And that's all they're here for. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Viji, for that, Vijay. Hanji.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of the talk. Did you talk about what listening is, or what Gurmani says about truly listening and what that means? Because it's listening through ears, and I was just wondering if that was covered or not in the beginning.
So we just this body, it was just Guru Nanak Dev Ji answering the question that the Siddhs had of actually what's the power of listening, and Guruji says actually by listening, and then talked about various different things. So we're doing 4 Bodhiya on listening, and then there's 4 Bodhiya after that on the next stage, and then we've got further stages as well. So this is just a start. Actually, we first need to start listening, right? So you'll find out more in terms of benefits of listening in the next 3 weeks, and then also about accepting as well.
Just to I understand the question, are you saying like just merely listening? Is that what you mean by Sonia, or do you mean as in, does it mean more than just actually listening?
I think what I'm saying is anything to do with your home ego. When someone's got home ego and they're listening, but they're not. To listen, you need to almost sometimes become
100%. So
yeah,
that's basically what VG is trying to get at as well. Is that it's not just it's both, right? Even if somebody's not paying attention, they can still gain some fal if Guru Bani is there, right? But if we actually listen to what Guru Sahib is saying, because again, loads of times our parents say to us, you should do this, you should do that. Why? And it's like, I know, well, I'm listening to you, but are we actually listening to them? So it's the same thing that when it comes to Gurbani, are we actually listening to, that sometimes you hear something again and again, then one day it's like, oh, now it makes sense. It's that realization in listening. Why that actually I'm listening what the Guru is saying to you now. Every single day the Guru is saying to me, just any pankti that comes to mind to you, you probably all got a personal experience where the Guru kept saying the same thing to me all the time from my life, and it never made sense. Then one day, it just made sense to me, and in that moment we connected. Right? So it's not just also just merely listening; it's that type of listening where actually now we understand it. So when it comes to Sonia, then we have the manne podi and then the asa, which means to do. Many Guru Sikhs will say that even though there's separate stages, listening, accepting and doing, there's not much difference between them. Because if we actually truly listen, then we'd accept it and then we do it right. Does that make sense? So Sonia and then manne or manne and then manne the next three, and then a bunch Padavan is doing in the asan to follow. There's not actually much difference between them. They all are interchangeable and they come together. Right? So once we truly listen, then we've accepted it and then we follow it. Right? So that is the essence of Sonia in that respect, is that it's clicked. It's made sense in my mind. And then from that, I've accepted it now and I follow it. Theek hai ji. Anybody else? There's loads of things with the little one. Benji, anyone want to jump in, talk about anything, talk about life, have for breakfast? Theek hai ji. Bhai Sahib ji, what's going on downstairs? Ardas, Hukunamas, so Khasandi Seva? Theek hai ji, that's fine. So we'll finish off here then. So we just get back into the routine because last 2 weeks a lot of us are away. So I think from next week we're back into full flow. We'll just do Ardas now, Salok Ardas, and then we'll take Guru Sahib ji down, accompany them down to Sachkhand. Sorry we didn't have time to do some WhyGuru Simran today, but we'll do it next week. So let's all do Salok together, Ardas, and then we'll go down to Sachkhand. Vaheguru ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru ji ki Fateh. Salok Bhavan Guru Pani Pita Mata